Hello, and everyone, welcome to the Building a Happy and Mindful Legal Culture event, where we will explore what it means to create a work environment that's open, authentic, and calm, especially for those working in the legal industry. My name is Rod Ahmed, and I am the founder of a legal tech startup called Lawtrades, where our mission is to create an open legal system by connecting independent lawyers around the world to flexible engagements within the legal departments of some of the most innovative tech companies on the planet. So this topic is deeply personal to me. I'm a guy that's gone through the law school route, competing fiercely against all my classmates to try to graduate at the top of the class. I've also picked up everything and moved to Silicon Valley to raise millions for my startup in order to grow it faster and faster and faster at all costs. And to numb the obvious burnout, I've often turned to alcohol and partying, which we all know is not a sustainable solution. But the silver lining is, after a long period of time, I understood that happiness and balance is actually a skill you can develop, like nutrition and fitness. And that having a peaceful mind actually helps you make decisions more clearly. So you can see the long-term outcomes and actually be more productive, working less hard because you're making better decisions. So with all that said, I'm especially excited really to discuss this topic with some amazing folks at some amazing organizations that are really bringing innovation to the mental health and wellness space. Headspace, Gympass, Ginger, the Institute of Wellbeing and Law. Together, they're helping lots of people live healthier and happier lives. So before we begin, I thought it would be kind of cool for us to do 2 shared breaths and to just get us a little grounded before we begin. Just a quick disclaimer, if you are driving or operating heavy machinery, I would encourage you to skip this step and just listen in. But in just a moment, I'll ask you guys to close your eyes, inhale through your nose for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, and exhale through your mouth for 10 seconds. And we'll do this 2 times. All right, so everyone close your eyes. Now inhale, 3, 4, 5, hold, 2, 3, 4. Now exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, one more time. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale. All right, now open your eyes. Awesome. So let's get this show on the road. I'd like to first introduce Michael Marchand, who is the head of legal at a company you might have heard called Headspace. And you might have heard of them because they were just included in Time 100's most influential companies list. So congrats to you on that, and obviously no big deal, right? I've had the pleasure of meeting Michael in person before the pandemic, and he's just such an amazing, warm spirit. So when I had this idea for this event, I couldn't think of a better person to help us moderate this discussion than you, to help us really explore what it's like to include mindfulness in our day-to-days. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic off to Michael.
Thanks so much for those kind words, Rod. I'm getting a bit of feedback. Hold on one second. Or can everyone hear me okay? Okay, sorry about that. Yep. Well, thanks for those kind words, Rod. Very gracious host, and that was an amazing mindful moment you presented to us. If this Lawtrades thing doesn't work out for you, you may have a spot on the Headspace content team. So it's a great audition there. So a little bit about me. My name is Michael Marchand. I'm the VP and head of legal over at Headspace. We're a digital meditation, mindfulness, and sleep platform. I've been with the company for about 6 years. I started literally the day that our Series A transactional documents were first passed over for review. I had no corporate finance background. I'm a former IP litigator, so that was a fun introduction for me. I'm part of a small but mighty team of 3 at Headspace, and meditation and mindfulness have always been very near and dear to my heart. One of the most enduring stories of my legal career goes back to when I was working at a firm, a bit burned out, and I was using Headspace, and I would sort of abscond off into the parking lot, get into my car and meditate. And I didn't want any of my coworkers to see me because back then it was a little bit taboo, probably a lot like yoga was in the 80s, and I felt like a weirdo. And fortunately, the stigma around meditation and mindfulness practices has really dropped off in recent years, and it's become a more accessible and accepted means to happiness. So it's been great to be part of that journey, and let's hear from some of our other panelists. So Bree, can you please give us a few words about yourself?
You bet. All right, I did the double unmute, so I think we're okay here. We got a thumbs up on you can hear me? Nope.
Bree, I don't think we can hear you.
Okay. I've got that unmuted.
A little bit of technical difficulties, but maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
The wrong unmute button. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay.
We hear you now.
Yeah. So I'm the current board chair of the Institute for Wellbeing and Law. And speaking of startups, we've got started in December of 2020. And so there's just massive amounts of work going on around that, but there couldn't be really a better time to start working on these issues for the profession. About me, I've been a lawyer for 32 years. I started off gung-ho in the trenches, representing victims of domestic violence and then victims of child abuse for about 15 years, and took all of that in, took all of it home, dealt with the stress in a real maladaptive way, as they say, and used alcohol to deal with the depression and the anxiety and, you know, what they call it, now there's a word for it, secondary PTSD. And so time goes forward and I hit my bottom and I lose my job and everything just comes falling in. And when I got sober, I grabbed onto everything I could. And one of the biggest things that helped me was meditation. I developed a strong meditation practice. And I have said many times, meditation really saved my life. And so I was an early adopter of Headspace too, Michael, and just love it. Yeah, so now fast forward about 11 years later, and I get the incredible privilege to head up this new institute and try to bring about really significant change in the legal profession, which I think we're all trying to do. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Bree, and of course for that Headspace plug. I appreciate it. Let's pass it along to Ellen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ellen Hochberg. I'm the General Counsel of Gympass. Gympass offers a network of fitness and well-being options that companies can give to their employees as an employee benefit. So basically the way it works is employees can sign up for a monthly membership and then they can access all of our fitness and well-being options. And the cool things about Gympass is that you could either do the same thing every day or you could do something different every day. So if you are obsessed with SoulCycle, you could go to SoulCycle every day of the month. But if you want to just mix it up, you could do SoulCycle one day, you could go to Equinox the other day, you could do online personal training, you could do meditation. So it's a very cool platform and a great solution. And with the onset of the pandemic, we really stepped it up and made sure that we had a full digital offering too. So we have a full range of digital services as well as in-person fitness offerings. And we also increased our well-being offerings. So now we really have a full range of things like meditation, sleep, nutrition, even therapy options on our platform. So really excited to be a part of this business. Personally, I've always been a little bit of a fitness obsessor. So like Michael used to sneak out to do meditation. I actually, when I was a young associate, I used to sneak out to go to the gym in the middle of the afternoon because that's when it was least crowded and I got to use my machines without interruption. Going to the gym was always okay. That was never weird, but going in the middle of the afternoon, completely weird and unacceptable. So that's my little secret. I'm happy to report that Gympass promotes middle of the day workouts and makes it easy to do so because you could do it whenever, wherever you want it. So yeah, really happy to be a part of this important conversation.
Thanks, Alan. And I really do love the comprehensive nature of the service offerings that Gympass includes. I'm also a really big fan of using our physical bodies to experience mindfulness and happiness. May not look like it, but I'm also an avid fan of exercise. So I'm currently nursing a bit of a foot injury, but someday soon I hope to get back out there again. Let's pass it on to Patrick.
Thanks, Michael. I can also vouch for both Headspace and Gympass. So for anyone who's interested, both great products. So I'm Patrick Lytle. I'm the general counsel at Ginger. And Ginger is what we call an on-demand mental health company. So what is that? It's a product that we sell a lot like Gympass to employers for their employee populations, but we also sell it to health plans for their members as well. And what the product is it's primarily a behavioral health coaching product, but we also offer clinical care as well. So employees or members of health plans can access 24/7 behavioral health coaching through a licensed behavioral health coach, or through or they can escalate their care to a licensed clinician, psychiatrist, or a therapist. So the psychiatry or therapy is delivered through video. The health coaching is delivered through messaging within the application. And the unique aspect of it is that it's collaborative. So if you're working with a coach and also a therapist at the same time, they'll work together to make sure that they're both aware of your plan and that keeping things moving forward on the right foot through both coaching and therapy. The whole premise of the company is built on addressing both stigma issues and making it easily accessible, increasing access where there wasn't, because about half of U.S. counties don't actually have a clinical provider for mental health care in the U.S. And then there's also a shortage of clinicians. And so what Ginger is trying to do is promote access through other means, through our behavioral health coaches. And as it turns out, about 90% of our members use only a behavioral health coach and don't escalate into clinical care because it addresses their needs. So they're able to work with that coach on a day-to-day basis and deal with some of those issues that we all deal with, and like heading into a difficult meeting or coming out of a fight with a partner. You can just jump on the app and kind of work through that with the coach, and don't necessarily need to stress the system and use a clinician for something that you can handle with the coach. So the whole goal of the product is really just to reframe what mental health care means for people and to provide more access to more people.
Thanks a ton, Patrick. It's really amazing the work that Ginger is doing to democratize and increase accessibility to mental health. Technology can be such an impediment to mental health these days. So when we're able to flip that paradigm upside down and use it as a tool to help the world, it's just such an encouraging and amazing thing to see. So with those introductions in the bag, I'm going to kick off this panel discussion. And I'm going to start off with something that lawyers love, which is defined terms, and something that lawyers hate, which is brevity. And I'm going to ask the panel to give their own tweet-length definitions of what a happy and mindful legal culture is. And to kick it off, we'll pass it over to Bree.
All right, so I fortunately had the question ahead of time. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but because to be able to say something like that in tweet length, it took some thinking. So I would say that it's really about a legal culture that respects the humanity of the people that are a part of that profession. and allows us to have meaningful work and a fulfilling life.
Okay, great. Ellen?
So yes, not great with brevity, but I would say for me, and this isn't something that I generally have encompassed in my conception of my department, but a strategic enterprise mindset, fostering independent personal and professional development.
All right, Patrick?
Sure. So mine was anxious enough to do the job well, but able to sleep well at night.
Oh, that's incredible. I may have to plagiarize that, which when I give my definition, it's literally all plagiarization. So just tacking other people's work on top of itself. This was also challenging for me. I don't use Twitter except to follow random NBA beat writers and developing stories in professional basketball. So, but what I would characterize it as is mindfulness is awareness plus compassion, and happiness is performing work in a way that promotes purpose, pride, and pleasure. Just diving into that a little bit more. For legal teams, I think the purpose and pride aspects somewhat take care of themselves. It's pretty inherent in the work that we do. It's the pleasure part that I think is a particularly tough nut to crack, and what I really try to focus on these days, both for myself, my team, and my coworkers. Do any panelists have any comments to that or anything else that was shared during this section? Okay, moving on. So our next prompt is that happy and mindful leaders foster happy and mindful teams. So I'd love to hear from each of you what you do to be happy and mindful, and particularly through the lens of this last year and dealing with the effects of the pandemic and working remote. Bree, can you weigh in?
Yeah. You know, overall, I found that after those early years when I just worked myself so hard, I really found that I needed to, and this is a part of my meditation practice, my Buddhist practice, is really to also make sure that there's enough space in my life for it not to be over full, that I can have some room for rest, rejuvenation, and also to really savor the experiences that I have and prioritize things like family and friends and nature and the things that, that make it all possible. And the pandemic, I mean, that just brought it all home even more. I mean, I have a history of depression and substance use disorder, so I know when things get tough, I've got to pay attention. I've got to up my self-care game. And so it's like doubling up on the meditation, doubling up, making sure I'm getting exercise, doing all of those things. And if it gets too difficult, I can't put off. Maybe I need to go back and get into therapy for a little while. Maybe I need some support from somebody, and not being too busy or too proud or whatever to avail that. So I think that just the pandemic, of course, just brought everything in, all of these issues that I work on in the legal community, which is depression, anxiety, and substance use disorders. I mean, just really have brought that to the forefront.
And Bree, I'm curious, do you enact any particular measures to stay adherent to those practices and habits? Any sort of like accountability measures or goals or anything like that?
That's great. Sometimes I'm good at that and sometimes I'm not. And so sometimes I would say writing it down and journaling my physical activity I do. And then when I'm doing a really good job with my meditation practice and really consistent, I have worked with a meditation instructor, basically. So I have somebody who is supporting my practice, and also being in a community of other practitioners really helps a lot too.
Amazing. All right, Ellen.
So I have a confession. I am not the most mindful person. In fact, I'm probably one of the least mindful people. I'm very I'm a serious multitasker, and that's always actually worked really well for me, and it's allowed me to do a lot of things fairly well. Kind of came crashing down with the pandemic, though. It wasn't working so well for me. There was just too much going on. I have 2 little kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old who were suddenly with me all the time while I was trying to work, and you know, multitasking and trying to deal with my kids and work at the same time just was not working. Instead of being able to focus on like 5 things at once, I could focus on nothing. And so I really, as I said, I'm very devoted to fitness, and it's always been a way for me to distress. And so kind of double down on that, and that really helped. Additionally, I found that it was super important for me to actually be more mindful. I really needed to separate out what I was doing at any given time. I couldn't multitask as well anymore because I found that it was just too much going on. So I found that when I had to be with my kids, when I was responsible for them, I needed to be with my kids. I needed to block that time out of my calendar. I know plenty of people were forced to balance their kids in front of videos as well as doing work calls. And, you know, fortunately I was, and I think I really, really give Gympass credit. They were super accommodating to us working parents, and really were very understanding when I needed to block time out on my calendar so that I could focus on being a good mother when I was being a mother, and being a good lawyer when I was being a lawyer, because I was doing a horrible job when I was trying to do both. And that's probably the first time that I've ever had difficulty multitasking. So I really found the value in being more mindful about what I was doing. And I also started, for pretty much the first time ever, meditating and doing yoga. People have always told me I would benefit from that, largely because I'm so type A, but I never really devoted the time, but I did find that it was very helpful to get me more centered on what was going on and what I was trying to focus on in the moment, and not worry about all the worries that were ready to jump in whenever I let them. So that was it.
Very cool. And Ellen, how's that yoga practice gone for you?
So one of the reasons I didn't like yoga is because I'm not good at it. I've been a runner for so many years that I have really tight hamstrings. And so a lot of the yoga stretches are really, I'm just bad at them. But I actually found I was able to let go of that, and I really am enjoying it. And I really find that it does help me really focus more in the moment, and actually it's great practice.
That's awesome. And do you find running to be a mindful activity?
Not really. I mean, I find that my mind races even when I run. So what I have to do is I have to listen to the podcast when I'm running so that I can stay focused on the moment. And then I find it to be mindful. But it'd be lovely if I could be mindful without that extra stimulus. But you can when I listen to the podcast in addition to running. Then I'm gotcha.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the podcast while running. My consumption of podcasts is prolific, so I usually have a pretty big library to get through. I actually had an epiphany a couple years ago when it comes to mindfulness and running. So I was at a Headspace retreat, and our co-founder, Andy, was there. Andy's the literal voice of Headspace for any of you who use the product. And he walked us through a literal walking meditation, where we started on one side of this big field and walked towards the other, and we focused on our steps and our breathing. And, you know, I was a bozo and was going way faster than everyone else. I felt like I won. Of course, that's not how it works. But kind of once I got the hang of it, it ended up being a very relaxing, mindful, calm experience. And I've been running long distance for most of my life. And it actually reminded me of what it felt like to complete a really nice long run. And I realized that when I am running, a lot of times I'm very focused on my breath and my form, and what's referred to as my strike, which is like how my foot hits the pavement when I'm running. Particularly, I have a chronic injury in my left foot, so the strike is very important. And it just hit me like a truck, like, oh wow, one of the reasons why I love running so much is because it ends up being this many minutes long meditation. more or less, where I'm very in tune with my body. I'm very focused. I'm very like centered and just in my own little world. And then the rest of the world kind of passes by. So that was a pretty key unlock to me, because before then I really thought, okay, if I want to be mindful and develop a mindfulness practice, I kind of need to be sitting down and like actually meditating. And since then I've realized that there's so many other avenues for mindfulness in life, and it's been really helpful on my journey. So anyways,
Michael, while we're just on that point, I wanted to you just brought up running and mindfulness. I had to just sort of say something. I think at least for me, I'm definitely with you on broadening the definition of meditation, right? If we look at sort of the core of like what we're trying to achieve during meditation, it's like the state of no mind, right? And whether you are running or whether you're creating a painting or you're working on a product, you know, those moments when you truly get lost into the thing that you are doing, you know, at least, you know, for me, and it seems like for you as well, is like you get that outcome of no mind. And, you know, that's how I honestly, how I got started with running. Is it actually wasn't from a physical standpoint. I just really enjoyed blasting Nirvana and just running as fast as I can for 30 minutes or an hour straight. And I was just like, wow, like that was awesome. And you know, part of your mind, yeah, does think about certain things, but for the most part, you reach sort of this, like, I don't know, I guess they call like runner's high or whatever, where you sort of lose contact with like your physical body almost a little bit, and you're just going. So like, yeah, I just want to just give like a thumbs up on that. And just any and all forms of creativity for me, writing, art, reading, can all be sort of done in like a mindful way. And almost like if you look at the bad habits of like mindfulness, which is maybe like drinking alcohol, you're sort of doing the same thing, which is like take yourself away from the present state. But like, that's not really sustainable, and that's not really healthy to just, you know, like go out and drink all night. So it's like, when I kind of came to that realization of viewing mindfulness from that sort of broader lens, it really opened me up to just like the morning commute to the office, to sitting on my chair, to just like listening to the birds. Like you can just find those little pockets of it. And for me, that's really changed my life.
Just to elaborate on that a little bit, I think that what used to intimidate me about mindfulness and meditation was that people talked about achieving this sort of higher, you know, higher level of realization, or something kind of transcendent. And for me, I find that being able to focus on just the one thing I'm doing in the moment, not transcending anything, but actually being present in the moment instead of thinking about the 10 other things, that for me is the mindfulness that I've been able to achieve. And I think that that actually is a really great, that's also a really great step in the process too. I feel like that's progress instead of, I don't necessarily think I'm going to get to transcendence, but being present is really a good step for me.
Thanks, Ellen. I mean, yeah, I have no intentions of ever dissipating into nirvana, but I certainly do enjoy my periodic runs. Patrick, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, happy to. At the risk of jumping on the bandwagon here, running is my thing as well for clearing my head. It hasn't always been that way. It used to be more of just a fitness thing. Lately, especially during the pandemic, it's my way to kind of clear the head, take myself out of this room that I'm always in, and just connect a bit with being outside, and try to observe the trees and the things that I'm running by. But also, if I find I do the podcast thing sometimes, but I find that if I kind of let it be quiet and just listen to my thoughts, that's when I tend to unlock things in my brain. It doesn't always happen. It's not a guarantee that it's going to, but sometimes things just pop into my head, and it's like, wow, that's such a simple solution. I should just try that. Or maybe it's just a little bit of clarity around something I've been working on for a while. And it's personal, it's work, whatever is bugging me tends to sort itself out if I give it time. During the pre-pandemic period, that was kind of the go-to from a fitness perspective. And during the pandemic, that's really changed. It's, I think, in some ways easier now to do that just from a logistical perspective, because I literally just put on my shoes and, you know, as long as I have the window open, I can go do it, versus being downtown. I work in Soma in San Francisco, which, you know, isn't the loveliest place to go for a run. And it's, you know, it's not always that easy to get in and out and, you know, get showered off before you go back to work. It takes a lot more time. You know, these days, obviously things have changed. And so it's a little bit easier for that in that respect. On the harder side, I think that the challenges are that you tend to kind of get locked in. And, you know, I can't count the amount of times I've gotten to like 2:30 and realized that I haven't eaten anything. And I think that's a pretty common experience for a lot of people right now, just not really taking care of yourself. And so that's one of the challenges. For me though, you know, accountability comes through like carving out that time. And so I put a calendar entry on for what I call strategic thinking, even though it might be a run, it might be a meditation. It might just be like a little bit of time with the computer off just to think. I don't always stick to it. I'm not great about that, but when I do, I get a lot of value out of it. And I've started to reframe the way I think about it as being, that's part of work for me, because I have to settle my brain to be able to do my job well. And if I get to the afternoon and I've just been going, Zoom call, my brain is not working well. So I need that time to settle things. And if it's a run, if it's just a quiet meditation, whatever it is, that tends to do the trick. It's not always, but it tends to. But you know, there's some value in actually carving out that time, because it keeps me accountable, but also, you know, my teammates can see it. And I am a team of one, but, you know, I think it's useful, especially if you're a team leader, to kind of demonstrate that for your teams and show them that you're taking the time for yourself. It's not all hard charging. You're actually taking some time to kind of sort things out for yourself, but also, you know, reframing it that it you know, helps you do your job better as well.
Thanks, Patrick. I really do think those accountability measures are key to sort of reconcile like what we know is good in theory and actually reducing that to practice. I read a book recently called Atomic Habits. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, but it's basically about habit building, formation, and adherence, and it has some really good accountability approaches in it. One thing that I've done is I live with my girlfriend and I've made her my like accountability partner, where if I'm not doing the things that I've promised to do, she holds me strict to it. And I end up, we have a program where I donate a set amount of money to charity. So it's a little bit of a pain out of my pocket, slash some philanthropy. And it's worked well so far. She also finds me directly and I pay her if I forget to lock the front door. So there's kind of two elements to that. And we received a great question from the audience from Akash that I'm going to read out loud to the panel, and then panel, feel free to jump in any sort of order here to respond to it. So here's the question from Akash. In a profession that often demands extreme responsiveness, how do you balance the importance of mindfulness and remaining present with the constant pressure to respond to clients, managers, etc.? And that is a great question. I'll open it up to the panel and think on it for a second and perhaps provide my own response.
I think that's a huge question, and it is profoundly difficult. I work with a lot of big law firms, and people work with hundreds, if not thousands, of lawyers over the years who are dealing with severe anxiety and burnout and overwhelm. And that's a huge issue. And it's very difficult if you are sort of closer to the bottom of the food chain and, you know, thinking about what do you have control over to change things in your life. And a lot of times there's not. I mean, perhaps you can speak up and express, but it really is hard. And I mean, speak up to whoever is your direct report, or maybe go, if you have to, if you're being bullied or harassed, which does happen, you know, go to HR for sure. But it's really hard. And honestly, the onus to such a great degree is on leadership in law firms and leadership of teams, you know, and understanding that when you start putting those kinds of pressures, you're going to reduce the quality of your work. You're going to increase people leaving the profession, which increased costs and overhead. It's not, you know, if you're looking at the long term, it's not really going to pay off. But it's extremely, it's in some ways the 800-pound gorilla or whatever in the room about this is the expectations that law firms have of their associates and the younger members of the firm and clients too. You know, when you have the corporate clients, and how do you get in a situation where they're willing to be respectful of the lawyers that they hire, that they actually have a weekend, you know, or time to rest and sleep. So there's a lot bound up in that. And I wish I had. If any of you guys do have a good answer to that question, you know, you could make a lot of money. So that's all I've got on it.
Cool. I think we just got cut off a little bit at the end. Michael, you can still hear us, right?
I can hear. There's a bit of an echo, Rod, but are we good now, panel? Thumbs up. Okay. Thanks for that, Bree. I'm going to add a little bit, particularly from the perspective of working in-house. I think it's really important for us attorneys to really have a solid understanding and vulnerability in communicating to our leaders in terms of what our bandwidth is and what our capabilities are. Like particularly when I joined, right, I felt very nervous about ever raising my hand and saying, I don't know if I can do all of that, the amount of time that you've asked in an efficient, competent way. And that's just setting myself up for failure. So I found it to be very important to like educate my senior leaders and my business partners about like what proper expectations should be, and particularly why unrealistic turnaround times are going to be detrimental, not just to me, but to the organization as a whole and their own business objectives, right? Like being able to take a step back and to see the forest through the trees as attorneys is so critically important. And when we're deprived of that ability, we lose a ton of the inherent value that we provide to organizations. So that sort of two-way communication and education I found to be really important, you know, speaking truth to power, which is difficult, but hopefully we have leaders that create psychologically safe environments where we feel like we have the ability to raise our hands. And if we are leaders, it's extremely important for our teams that we create psychologically safe environments. So that is reciprocated to us.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think I really agree with Michael there, and something that Bree said earlier that resonated, I think, for me was you know, that it affects the quality of the work. And in the times that I've actually had the courage, which few in my career, but the times that I've had the courage to speak up and say like, hey, this is not working. I can't provide this level of work 24/7. If I frame it in you know, the quality is suffering because of these demands, it's been effective. It's often, you know, you worry about this response. Well, then what are you good for? How could you possibly, you know, be in this position? This is what you signed up for. But the response has been like, oh, okay, well then how do we do this? How do we do this? And so I would encourage people to A, have that conversation, but also B, have, you know, a solution in mind, something that might, you know, whether it's external resources or something else, that hiring an additional headcount, whatever it might be, to kind of try to offset that and you know, have a solution that you can propose to you know, address the needs of the business, but also you know, keep you sane. And then on the leadership piece, you know, I think it's incredibly important that the leaders are always thinking about, like, the best thing we can do as attorneys a lot of times is risk management, you know, recognizing, understanding the risk to the business, and then prioritizing. We have to prioritize a million times every day. So doing that, you know, we have to do that downstream as well with the people that work with us and for us. So, you know, narrowing the number of times that we have to call on our people after hours, or, you know, on a quick turnaround, can only help, because they're just going to burn out and the quality of work is going to suffer.
Just to add on that, I mean, in a fast-growing company, not just the legal team, but every team is going to have too much to do and limited resources. And so I think it is so important to build a relationship of trust and partnership with the business teams, so that they know that the legal team is working to prioritize appropriately according to the business needs, just like the business team is working appropriately to prioritize based on what's most important in the moment. And I find that when that partnership and that trust is there, then you can make the choices about what's going to have to wait a little longer, and people are understanding about that. And I also think that it has a lot to do with your corporate culture. I mean, Gympass is a company where we really believe that it is important to take care of yourself physically and mentally, and we want our people to be doing that, and we support that, and we want people to block out time for that. And so we're not going to say, you better get this last bit of work done, and even if that means dropping everything else, dropping the rest of your life, because that's just not our value as a company. And I think that that's that shared value and commitment to the work-life balance and our employees' well-being permeates and really allows everybody the space to say, you know, we can't manage everything right away. Let's prioritize. Let's work together to prioritize.
Ellen, I think you cut out a little bit at the end of your remarks. Do you want to see if your microphone is turned on and rehash perhaps the last 45 seconds, or would you prefer we move on?
Yeah, maybe we can just move on.
Yeah, let's
circle back to it.
Okay, all good. So next, I'd like to hear from the panel what tools or tactics you use to assess the happiness of your teams or coworkers. How do we know if our teammates or direct reports are happy and mindful at work? Any particular tools or tactics?
Yeah, the one that I use all the time, and I think that it works well with me. I mean, my team is currently the board of directors for this institute. There are 10 of us, and we work together every day and are doing this really heavy lift. And so we have Zoom calls all the time, and I always have on gallery view, just like I do right now. And I am always scanning people's expressions, people who are not talking, and seeing what is their body language telling me. You know, what am I seeing on their face? Just yesterday we had a call, and one of the guys that I know thinks really deeply about things. And so I saw he had this furrowed brow, and I'm like, I bet, because he wasn't going to say anything, but I could see that on his face. And I said, hey, what's going through your mind right now? What are you thinking? And then there are other times where I can see somebody where I can tell like they're withdrawn, they're having a bad day or something, and I can just sort of check in. What do I know about this person? What's going on? Sometimes I'm like doing a check. Am I underappreciating people? You know, do I need to up the attaboys or something? But having the gallery view and being able to see people's faces is really helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's incumbent on us, especially as leaders, to understand that not everyone is a squeaky wheel, so to speak. A lot of people really like internalize frustrating events at work, or they feel bad about raising their hand and saying, hey, this person is blowing it and really making my life difficult or isn't following process. So as a leader, being able to like understand some of those nonverbal cues and perhaps dig in a bit and say, hey, that seems like you're a bit flummoxed or frustrated or, you know, vexed by this, like, let's dig in or dive in is helpful. Ellen, do you want to join?
Yeah, so we actually use Peakon, which is a survey tool. It's an anonymous survey tool, and we run company-wide and team-wide surveys about a variety of topics to gauge how people feel about things. And I actually find it really helpful because not only are some people not going to be the squeaky wheel, but there are a lot of cultures where even if asked directly, you won't get candid feedback if it's negative. So if you have to be mindful about the cultures of your team. And so I like to ask for direct feedback, but sometimes I'm not going to get it even when I ask. So I find it really helpful to have this survey tool, which is anonymous, although you can respond within the tool to hear if there are any issues that should be addressed.
Yeah, I can also jump in. So for our org, I'll talk about the org as a whole, since I'm a solo GC and don't have a team yet. But so as a company, we do a quarterly survey similar to Ellen, and it's anonymous as well, which I think is kind of the only way to do something like that if you want to get candid feedback. We include a metric in there called NPS, which is some of you may be familiar with in the product context. It's Net Promoter Score, and basically the question is, it's really simple. It's, you know, how likely are you to recommend the company to a friend or a colleague? And we've actually seen, especially in the last year, some really actionable feedback from that within certain business units in the organization. So we have a very large care organization. Our coaches and a good chunk of our clinicians are employees of the company, and so they're covered by the survey. And we've seen that the care organizations have really taken on the brunt of the pandemic. So, you know, the increased demand for mental health care you know, flows to the providers who actually support those folks. And so they've really felt the difficulty of dealing with more and more people who have heavier and deeper issues. And so we were able to, you know, funnel resources in their direction and try to find ways, you know, to create unique programs to support them and make them feel like we were actually taking action based on those surveys. And so the follow-up, I think, is as important or more important than the survey itself.
Awesome, thanks, Patrick. We also use a survey tool at Headspace. We use a platform called Glint. I really like it. Our key metric that we're measuring is employee engagement. I really like Glint because it's got a beautiful interface and it's very like respondent friendly. It doesn't feel like some big nasty pain to fill out. It's kind of friendly and light and like, oh, cool, slide the thing over. We've gotten really good response rates so far. So I'd recommend it to any organizations that are looking for survey tools. I also personally, with my team of 3, I have 2 direct reports, and I have a daily 30-minute stand-up with each of them. That kicked off when Headspace moved to a remote work environment vis-a-vis the pandemic. And really the intention at the beginning was just to have more interaction with my team. I used to sit right next to them. It was very easy just to chat things over in real time, but we lost that with the diaspora. And what it's evolved into, though, is an unintended benefit of like, it's just such a great forum for checking in and being able to observe nonverbal communication and have very frequent conversations about like, how are things really, and to dive into some of the qualitative side of happiness and mindfulness. All right, I see another question from the audience that I'm going to jump to, though I am mindful, Rod, that our time is coming up shortly. Do we have time for this question, Rod, or are there any sort of closing remarks that you want to jump into now?
No, let's keep the conversation going. I think there's like 1 or 2 really good questions. One around people, maybe managers not seeing the value of taking care of yourself. That I think, Ellen, did you want to maybe just quickly summarize that question and answer it?
I think it's a great question. Somebody asked, you know, what do you do if you have a manager who doesn't see the value in mindfulness or taking care of yourself, makes fun of fitness and taking breaks for that kind of self-care? And, you know, what is this person, any tips on what to do when we return to the office and lose the flexibility of working from home? And I have to say, you know, I definitely have been there. As I said, when I used to sneak out to the gym as a young associate, I got caught quite a few times, and it did not do positive things for my career development at the firm. But I guess I just made the decision that it was more important to me to try and get that in than to be the A+ associate. And I know that not everybody's in a position to make that decision. I mean, I would just say, like, try and get in self-care any way you can. Maybe it's, going to the bathroom for 10 minutes and doing a meditation in there. Whatever you can do to try and take care of yourself. I wish I had a better answer.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I guess I can like speak on behalf of like the perspective of like a founder of a tech company. I think in the beginning, it was always like a little bit weird to just be like, hey guys, I'm gonna go and meditate for an hour. And it might be in the middle of the day, or it might be at like 9 a.m. in the morning, and I might show up at 11 because I usually stay up at night like reading. I'm just, a late sleeper. But because it doesn't seem like work, right? It's like, oh, you're not actually doing something. But in actuality, like, we're all knowledge workers, like we use our brains to create opportunities in this world. And if that brain is constantly on this treadmill and you're overexhausting yourself, just like working out, if you just kind of just lift one, keep just doing bicep curls all day long, you're eventually going to pull that muscle. So at least for me, like I've sort of just told everybody like in the team, like, take that time off. Like some people like working at night and they wake up a little bit later, and that's totally fine. Some people are early risers and they do that, but like we get to work from wherever we want. And I think that's always been that way in tech, but more so during COVID, it just further sort of stills that point. And I don't know, I think that just at least for me, from my personal experience of like starting from meditating only 5 or 10 minutes to like an hour each day, every morning, it has profoundly impacted my life. It has profoundly changed my productivity, and the science is there as well. And you have great companies like Headspace that sort of put out all that data to really just kind of further reinforce it. So, if you're afraid, I would say, push back a little bit and show the proof, show the data. Like, we need to put our minds at rest every once in a while to really come up with creative solutions.
I think there's just one other thing, I'll just say it, is at some point people are going to start voting with their feet. And know that if that is the culture of where you're working, it's unlikely that you, as somebody lower down the ladder, are going to change that. And so maybe it becomes time where you start casting your eye around other places where you can go, where your humanity is going to be honored. And so let me just say, footnote, if there are any managers, leaders, partners who are on this, remember, you're going to have people working for you that will vote with their feet. And it's incredibly expensive proposition when you have huge attrition. And one of the things we're seeing right now in particular, and we don't have time to get into it, but it's huge, is with women leaving the legal profession. And right at this very moment, as we're coming back to work from the pandemic, that is happening just in droves. It's a huge issue.
Bree, those are such great points. Rod, do we have time for a quick lightning round, or do we need to put a bow on this?
I know we're running a little close on time. And I also know we have Paul Davidson, who is the founder of Clubhouse, on the room as well. I don't know, Paul, if you want to sort of share any thoughts around some of what we're discussing. You guys are clearly building something huge with a very sort of small team, but if you do feel compelled to chat, feel free to chime in. Otherwise, we can kind of wrap it up with a quick little lightning round. Whoops, sorry, I was on mute. But yeah, Michael, why don't we just start with like a lightning round, and Paul comes up, we'll sort of switch gears that way.
Okay, quick one here. Extracurricular activities with your team. Have you implemented any with success that don't feel like forced fun? I have struggled with this. Would love to hear some suggestions that have worked.
My team had the best time ever playing code names on Zoom. It was so much fun.
I have no idea what that is. Can you elaborate?
It's basically a board game that they made into a Zoom version, and it's you break into two teams and you have to guess who's the spy and who's not the spy, or who's the secret agent. It's a game, and I thought we did a couple of coffee hours or happy hours, and it just seemed like this was more akin to what we would do if we were together, an activity where because we usually do, and sometimes we do fitness activities. We'll do group workouts on Zoom like we do in person, but Codenames was the best.
I would just say, what I'm working on my team, this is a passion project. We all have our day jobs and we come together and we love each other and we love what we're doing. So I'm afraid I don't have some fun activity. Everything that we do is fun. That sounds cheesy, but at this point, that's true. So we're really lucky for that.
We had an improv group come in that was a big hit. There's a group called Bats in San Francisco that they did a Zoom version of their performance, and it was really successful with the team. Everyone really enjoyed it. But I do recognize that this is a tough thing to do right now. It seems like the first few months of the pandemic, there was all those happy hours that were heavily attended at first, and then they started to trail off as everyone just saw it as another Zoom session. So it's tough to do.
The only thing I'll add is, particularly, we're somewhat blessed most of the time with legal teams that they're not giant. So if you have a small sample size of direct reports, you can usually find like some kind of particular areas of interest. It's not like the widest tent in the world, you know what I mean? So like my team generally likes to eat the same type of food. So going to a restaurant in that zone is helpful. I think it's nice to try to inform those activities from like a bottoms up approach, rather than just grabbing like the, activity du jour out of the basket of corporate fun offerings and throwing it at everybody. All right, Rod, you want to take us home?
Yeah, I know we're reaching time right now. So I just want to thank everybody for joining this room and discussing this kind of sensitive topic and opening up and just really being vulnerable and bringing some truth to this kind of, mystical concept of mindfulness within the legal industry. We're blessed to have, I think, almost like 800 people join the Clubhouse room, which was amazing. Probably thanks to Paul for joining it. And we had a bunch of people on Zoom that joined in as well. Just thank you to Michael for moderating this, Alan, Bree, Patrick. You guys were amazing. You guys took time out of your obviously busy schedule to really speak from the heart and bring some openness and transparency to the legal industry. So super grateful for all your guys' time. If anyone's still on this call, definitely check out Headspace, definitely check out Gympass, see the great work Bree is doing, as well as the good stuff at Ginger. If there's any independent lawyers on the platform that are looking to find flexible engagements, feel free to check out Lawtrades. We care about flexibility, freedom, letting you choose your own hours and pick and choose your own clients. And if you are a GC that is working in-house and you're super slammed, give us a shot, give us a try. We have one of the largest networks of freelance lawyers, and proud to call Michael one of our customers as well. So thank you again. Appreciate all the love, appreciate all the questions, and we'll love your guys' feedback when there's an email that goes out on how this event went. So thank you guys.